Welcome to Colney Talk Podcast.
Hello everyone, hope you're doing well. Welcome back to another exciting episode of Colney Talk Podcast, your bite-sized breakdown show. I'm your host, Alex. First-time listeners, glad to have you here. And to my returning guests, thank you for sticking with me. As always, I talk a bit about the Arsenal match and pick out my top 3 Arsenal players who shined, and one odd player, not good enough, I get to call out. Arsenal's narrow 1-0 victory over Shakhtar Donetsk in the Champions League. While it's a win is always welcome. This match to me, it should have looked like a team's overall performance in resemblance of added motivation from previous match. Well, it wasn't. And, that's something to, I guess, feel off about. So many of us had the same feeling or sentiment. Arsenal lined up with minimal changes from previous match with Gabriel Jesus starting. The absence of Saka and Timber still keenly felt, but the Gunners were determined to assert themselves early on, as we all expected. In fact, with the wish was to have, Ethan Nwaneri start or at least get some game time for this match, but that wasn't the case. And from the outset, as the game started, Arsenal aimed to dictate the rhythm of the game. They looked to exploit spaces in Shakhtar's final third, showcasing real great smart plays that we've always enjoyed, and it really hinted at potential breakthroughs. Despite having 65% possession in the first half, it was evident that we were struggling to turn that control, that dominance into meaningful chances. That's nothing new, but often in the case, once there's that breakthrough of a 1-0, and then everything else opens up. So the first opportunity we had fell to Calafiori, who unfortunately shot high from a promising position. In fact, that should have been like the first clear goal, without any obstruction, but he missed that. And then Arsenal were trying to capitalize on ball dispossession in dangerous areas a couple of times. A quick turn of events to take advantage and score, but nothing came out of that. And then we had a couple more good drives from Jesus where he was providing moments of hope, yet we were still waiting and hoping for something of a significant breakthrough, and that hadn't come in. Well, as we kept on, Trossard was proving dangerous on the ball early on, but he lacked that clinical edge as we needed. And coming from a player that we know who is one of our better finishers, or at least goal scorers in the squad, it was him that at least I looked at, but nothing yet. And Arsenal maintained comfortable control with their pressing movement, their passing movement. It became increasingly clear that we needed to find a way through on the deadlock. Shakhtar Donetsk respected our attacking presence. In fact, we, give them enough to deal with, pressured them in mistakes, really stayed on top of that, but we couldn't really just turn that around in the final moments. And then as it kept on, finally, Martinelli forced an own goal from Shakhtar's defense after some relentless pressure, and that's what we were really good at. And that's great. I mean, this moment felt like it could open the floodgates for Arsenal as Martinelli began to exploit Shakhtar's defensive frailties and his pace. Wow. It really was on display. His tenacity definitely was not something he could shy away from, and fully welcome. And as we continue to push on, the yellow card shown to Ben White became a concern. It just had that flashback feeling for me, as I felt like we were teetering on the edge of an unwelcome disaster. So despite our dominance in possession and shots, Arsenal registered 12 attempts with 4 on target. The clinical finishing simply wasn't there. Havertz, though, he had a few good chances, another close chance that went begging for him to, really finish up, but that didn't happen. And then Jesus had a golden opportunity to double a lead just before halftime, but he was denied as well. I mean, right there, I just got to give credit to Donetsk's keeper. He really had a lot of work and did a lot of defending and kept them, close enough to still maintain that, 1-0 drought. Overall, it was all Arsenal in the first half. Shakhtar posed no real threat aside from their pace on counterattacks, and we managed to keep them quiet for most of the half. However, while we were controlling the game well enough, there was an underlying sense of frustration as we headed into halftime with only a single own goal to show for the efforts. Now, it's never in the stars the way we expect it to be. It's a high, intense competition. It's up for grabs and anything can happen. But at least for this game, there was simply more for Arsenal to do, playing at home in front of the crowd, under the bright lights. I mean, I think this should have looked like a team with a little bit more motivation and how we could have represented that with some of our scoreline. But, here we are. And then second half kicked off with our first change, bringing in Mikel Merino for Ben White. This tactical switch saw Partey slot in the right back, as we know now, and it's a decision I'm okay with as far as the switch, just taking Ben White off. But I hope, for me, it was just more of he just got pulled to rest and, get him away from any more danger. But if it's injury concerns, man, they are piling up, and we definitely need some breather there. Trossard had a header early in the second half that served as another sign that we needed to score real soon and get the lead on, at least put some more of the impact that we showed all throughout the game so far. However, Shakhtar Donetsk began to grow into the game and created their first notable build-up play in our final third. We defended well and pushed out their press. A beautiful hustle from Martinelli, and that tenacity was really there. Nearly cut their keeper off guard. He was relentless all throughout this game, and definitely a big credit to him. And in that pursuit, he really did a lot, but we couldn't find the final touch when we were able to gain possession at those dangerous areas again, similar to the first half. Shots on goal continued to climb as Martinelli kept firing away. However, it felt like we were peppering the goal without any real conviction. Another close call came from Trossard's end, but, Havertz failed to connect properly during that crucial moment. So, again, more missed chances. We were connecting in different situations of those build-up plays, but those final attempts weren't really happening. As Shakhtar started finding their feet and gaining possession in our half, nerves, at least my nerves, began to set in for Arsenal. It was disheartening to see how quickly we reverted back to allowing them time on the ball after having dominated earlier in the match. And when I mean allowing them, we had everything in this game. We controlled possession, we controlled tempo, we had the moments where we could dictate this game well enough. But, again, chances come and go. Now they had their own chance. They grew into the game. We just had to fight for it. Our players seemed anxious and scattered. Our sequence of play fell apart, and when we needed more cohesion the most, it just was a struggle, and we had to find a way to get back into what we were doing. One big worrying moment for me came when Calafiori had to be subbed off due to injury. A worrying trend given our current squad instability. Just when it seemed like momentum might shift back towards us, disaster struck. Arsenal were awarded a penalty after a foul in the box, but wow, we were denied by an abysmal spot kick from Trossard. The disappointment was palpable. It felt like a cloud hanging over the stadium. If we didn't get a chance to score from that penalty, I don't know what else would have happened. I mean, injuries piling up and the players looking anxious. We couldn't seem to find our rhythm or sustain any attacking sequences. Heading into the final minutes of the match, our attacking spark seemed to have cooled off. In fact, it definitely looked that way. A great cross from Martinelli found Rice in the box, but once again, there was no good connection at the end of it. And as Shakhtar pushed for an equalizer late on, Raya made a huge save to keep us ahead. And it was now Arsenal, really fighting hard, and it was now a scrappy finish as we fought to starve off any late comeback attempts from Shakhtar Donetsk. And that was it for the game. I mean, the statistics tell their own story. Arsenal finished with 17 shots, but only 5 on target, compared to Shakhtar's 9 shots with 2 on target. The expected threat created by Arsenal was significantly higher, as you imagine. Like, it was a 1.5 for us compared to 0.45 for Donetsk. Yet this disparity didn't translate into more comfortable scoreline, especially for Arsenal. So, adding to the fact that we missed that penalty and those close chances, it looked like a clear pylon and full of disappointment in that feeling. So, that's how the game went, and the feeling really stayed on throughout. Now, let me talk about my top 3 players for this game. First up, Martinelli. Undeniably, the Brazilian was one of our standout performers. He opened up Shakhtar's defense with his pace and dribbling ability. His relentless work rate led to a crucial moments that kept pressure on their backline. It didn't take long to see that our attacking was more effective coming from the left side, and there was so much that Martinelli was able to exploit. So, big ups to him. He did his job. He played really well with a lot of confidence, and that tenacity translated well in the game all throughout, both offensively and defensively. So he had a great play today. Second player, Kai Havertz. It just doesn't stop for this. This German is just unbelievable. He showcases versatility and intelligence yet again. He had 2 very close chances to score. He certainly looked like it was coming. It just sucked that didn't happen. But there was every evidence showing that he was fighting for it, hustling, pushing, just doing everything. And there's no way you can fault him. And definitely his performance showed it. His positioning allowed him to exploit spaces evenly throughout the match. The way he just cut through the back lines, that's just his natural signature. And a couple of his runs were missed opportunities in the first half to break away from the score. It just felt like those runs and were coming in. He was looking out for that cross to come through. In fact, there was one that came from Partey, but it was a little bit late, and then one that just went, far off, and it was a goal kick. But overall, Havertz was really impressive. Third and final player, David Raya. He made a couple of key saves, huge saves that secured the clean sheet and 3 points. Maintaining composure under pressure, that's just normal for him, and he commended his area as usual. Raya was on it, especially trapping crosses coming into the box. This was late in the second half. He had to make sure that he was on top of his game, which he did. It looked like he wasn't tested that much in the first half. Suddenly, he was now the focal player and the piece of Arsenal's team to ensure that the 3 points were secured, which he did. But it was some performance from him to make that happen. So we're definitely in a good position, all thanks to him in those final crucial moments. While we managed to secure a narrow 1-0 win over Shakhtar Donetsk, it wasn't without its frustrations, missing the penalty, and injury concerns. Although we controlled possession and created opportunities, our lack of clinical finishing was glaringly evident throughout the match. With the key players sidelined or struggling for form like Trossard today, we need everyone firing on all cylinders if we're going to get out this funk or this funk look-alike for real. This win keeps us on track in Europe. I'm okay with not so sexy football as long as we win, which we did. So credit to the team for producing the win. I'll certainly take it. Now we'll look forward to a big one this weekend, a huge one, a miracle and a masterclass. Please, fingers crossed. All right, that will do it for today's episode. Thank you for tuning in to the Colney Talk podcast. Remember, if you enjoyed today's episode, like, subscribe, and share it with your fellow Gunners. Until next time, up the arse.